you don't have to wait to feel ready or have permission to speak like a professional. So, something that I learned that was really valuable from you is try to get rid of phrases like, I know I don't have much experience in this, but, or I'm interested in, or I think. Like, you should just go for it and be confident and say, from my experience working on this, I've done this. The approach that I would take is just be confident, even when you know that you are early career. And even if you have internships that don't connect with the job description, there's always a way. There is always a way to connect it.
Welcome back to Answer the Call podcast, where we help Christians faithfully discern their calling and land a job that's aligned with it. Today is an episode for anyone who feels behind. So I don't know, is that everyone? I don't want to speak that over everyone listening to this podcast, but I think a lot of us feel behind. Some ways to recognize that feeling is maybe you're watching other people move forward while you feel stuck, or if you dread the question, how's the job search going? Or maybe you feel like you've done everything right on paper, but you still don't have the results that you want yet. If you're struggling with any of that, then this episode is going to be, I pray, a really big encouragement for you, because we have Katherine here today, who went from a place of discouragement to a place of consistent action, weekly interviews, renewed confidence, I'll say, and accepting a role that checked all the boxes. So we're going to dive into all the details about that story and what it really takes to land that first big opportunity out of school. But before we get into it, let me just say, Katherine, hi, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to share my experience.
I'm so excited to get into it. So before we start at the beginning, can you just tell the people listening, what is the role that you accepted and what made this opportunity exciting for you?
Yes, so I have accepted an OCM role, which stands for Organizational Change Management. It's in Columbus. I will be standing up a new OCM function with a really small team for this bank, and it has a 6-month training program, which I will learn everything about OCM and change management. And yeah, that's about it.
That's so good. You just described that so well. As an Ohio State grad myself, I'm so excited that you're going to be in Columbus. Such a cool city, such a young population, fun food scene, especially. I have to give you all my tips. And also, to add some context to your story, you just graduated with your master's. So this is your first job out of school, right?
Yes, first full-time job. I've only had like internships in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a huge deal. Let's take it back to the beginning of when we started working together, and let's talk about the headspace you were in. Before coaching, you had just graduated again with your master's. You did well in your internship. You were a strong student. Again, all these things you did right on paper, but you were finding the job market near impossible to navigate. How did comparing your situation to others around you really affect you?
Um, it consumed me. I think that was all that I was thinking about because I was this unemployed, just graduated person living back home with parents and not hearing back from places that I applied to. As like you said, doing everything right on paper, being a great student, and just social media definitely kind of consumed me as well, and seeing everyone around me have these amazing lives where they have continued their careers in whatever they do. And I felt like I was left behind and feeling like I'm old for 23, which is will be an insane thing to think think about, like how I thought that 23 is old and what am I doing with my life, um, on the late side. So that was what I was thinking about.
Yeah. Oh, that post-grad time. It's such a tender time in life, and it is ripe with comparison.
Yes.
So I think everything you just shared, very real. How did that affect your confidence when even thinking about jobs and what that future job would be?
Um, what do you mean by that?
Like, did you, what I see a lot of times when people are kind of in this dark place, so I don't mean to say that dramatically, but it's a dark place when you're applying and not hearing back and not hearing back. And a lot of times people start to get into these mindsets of, can I even do it? Like, what job should I even be doing? Am I shooting too high? Should I be doing something else? They start to question their entire path. Did you find yourself having that kind of confidence being shaken like that?
Okay, yeah. I I believe that the IO psych space and like consulting is what I wanted to do. So I really believed in myself and wanted to push forward, and I didn't want my degrees to go to waste, and not even wanting it to go to waste, but enjoying what I was learning in all my classes and all the internships that I've been a part of. Um, but consulting is also super broad. So I had a hard time narrowing it down to, do I want to do change management? Do I want to do organizational effectiveness? Do I want to do business transformation? All these other different titles. But I think I got to narrow it down to change management based on all the projects that I've done. They all involved change in some way. And I think that even tied back to one of my earlier jobs, which is self employed, teaching violin at home, changing like the behavior and helping young children's skills in music and how they take in information and how they learn. So that's how I narrowed it down to change management. But it was really difficult thinking what I wanted to do specifically.
Oh, that's so cool. And for context for anybody listening, we have a newer program introduced in the last 6 to 9 months, maybe, where call it our job search accelerator, job search program. Actually, not quite sure what we call it right now, but it's basically just phase two of the work we do together. So Catherine came in with this clarity already identified, and then we got to help with her with her job search strategy and support her through that. So the reason I'm clarifying that is sometimes most of the time we work with people through the clarity and the job searching, but it sounds like you had a great process for figuring out that clarity on your own, especially coming out of school and having all these internship experiences. So that's great. You had mentioned um, this place that you were in, you started to feel like a victim in the job market, which that's so real. That's so real. So, what did that mindset sound like internally?
Internally, it was like, I feel like I was born at the wrong time. I feel like I blame my parents for giving birth to me at the wrong time in the job market, but of course, like they did, it's not their fault or anything. Kind of just telling myself that it's not my fault, which it isn't my fault, but then I didn't take control of it. Like I just called myself a victim of the market and was like, okay, this is what it is, I guess, and not do anything different about the way that I job searched. Um, yeah,
Yeah, that's so real as well. I feel like I'm going to say that after everything you say. It's like how, you think, oh, why wasn't I buying a house in 2008? It's like,
yeah.
oh, because I was very young, born at the wrong time. We all have that thought at some point. And yeah, we can laugh about it, but it really does affect your actions. So when did you realize that maybe that wasn't the whole story? Maybe there was something that you could control a little bit better.
I figured that I need help. I figured maybe I need just an accountability partner as well, like someone to be saying like, how many jobs did you apply to? You should keep applying even when my motivation level was down. Someone to help drive me through that. But the thing is, like, that also isn't sustainable, and I should be relying on myself.
How did accountability affect your job search strategy?
For me, it was knowing that there was somebody by my side, um, that they would be poking around in the tracker sheet that I had and see how many applications that I've sent and what the response rates were, and then knowing that we're going to have a check-in call, so I better have questions prepared and have some kind of work to put in front of and be like, this is what I did. And but that's also the benefit for myself as well, to actually be able to land the job. And then so that kind of led me to being consistent. Back then, I used to rely on these random bursts of motivation and energy, but then, of course, motivation isn't something to rely on. I realized that I needed a coach to see what I was doing was right or wrong, or more efficient or less efficient, or a waste of my time. And I think something else that I want to add is my job search back then came from a place of fear and comparing myself to others than actually me wanting a job and being successful in my life and starting an actual career, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then you're just almost like more reactive rather than proactive. And it coming from a place of fear really attacks that consistency that you're talking about that was so helpful to develop. And what you said about motivation actually, it reminds me of this quote that I can't ever stop thinking about. Someone said to Kelsey, who then said it to me, motivation isn't required. Isn't that crazy? Motivation isn't required for what we need to do, but we rely on it so heavily. And motivation's great. And I think we definitely should take it into consideration and act on it when we have it. And that's awesome. But consistency is important to have in place for when motivation fluctuates. So
Right.
I think that's a smart thing to highlight. And then also, I think you are at a benefit coming straight out of school where you are used to doing homework and projects and everything in between and having someone that's checking in on your work, at least when you turn it in. I think that was a benefit to you versus sometimes when people are in their 40s or 50s in their job search, they're kind of relearning how to be a student in all of this.
Yes, that's a really good point. I guess when I started the job search, with which was like when I was still in school, I didn't realize how how much more open and more options there are, because there's like millions of companies out there in the world. But when I applied to like universities and colleges, well, there's only like a couple handful that I applied to.
True.
Since back then, like I was a violinist, so I was looking for a place that had a great music program, but also had a really strong academic program if I wanted to major in something else. So that narrowed it down. And but now, like the job search, there's just too many options. I don't have someone to behind my back to tell me which jobs to look out for or which companies to go for. Like there's just too many, so I completely just felt lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a huge problem I hear people talk about all the time, where we want to believe, endless opportunity wouldn't be a problem, but it is, because it's not endless opportunity, it's endless choices. And there's so much decision fatigue. Do I apply? Do I not apply? If I apply, do I do a cover letter? Do I edit my it's decision after decision after decision. So the consistency, in order to build consistency, you also build systems and processes that help you make those decisions a lot quicker. And the clarity, of course, helps with that, to really identify, okay, what kind of company do I want to work for? What kind of company do I not want to work for? And that comes through the job search process also. Just, interviewing and seeing different team dynamics. So you discovered along the way, you don't have to have all the answers right up front. But speaking of interviewing and speaking of consistency, you had one of the most consistent interview flows that I've seen. You were interviewing pretty much every week. How did that? So this was after you developed that consistency for a little bit, started having those interviews come back. How did that feel after having not heard back for so many months?
Mhm. So it actually, the consistency part, it definitely took like a couple weeks. It took like 2 weeks until I started to see things rolling in. But I was prepared for that because when you outreach or when you apply, it takes a little while to hear back, especially when you like just press down on the gas pedal. So I knew that it would take a while, but I I believe that I sent it. I sent the interview. I can't really, or I sent the message to the person, and I can't really make them reply faster or anything. So after those 2 weeks, I started getting interviews. Of course, like not from. I didn't have a huge response rate, but I expected that. I was just grateful to even have one each week, and they were roles that related really closely with change management, what I was going for. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had to, it's an interesting picture of believing without seeing, which is what we are called to do as believers, right? It's in the title. You had to believe it would work and commit to the process before you got to see results. But then you got to see results pretty quickly. 2 weeks. 2 weeks feels like a long time when you're in there. But looking back, um, that's amazing. And I know that you have also said it felt like a relief just to like finally be hearing back from people, right?
Yes, a big relief. Even when I didn't get a job or I didn't go through with, just knowing that I landed something was gave me a little bit of hope, because back then, like, I was landing nothing, and I didn't know if I was like aiming too high, or but then we had a lot of conversations, you and me, about like believing in myself. um I didn't even realize that I had so much negative self-talk, and I just kind of let it flow out and to you, and you were like, "It doesn't sound like you're believing in yourself." And I was like, "Oh."
Oh no. Yeah. Oh yeah, you were so willing to have those conversations too, which is always helpful. Um it's a lot more than just interview best practices, right? There's a whole other side of this, which is what are you actually believing about yourself? Do you believe in yourself? Do you think you can do this job? If you don't think you can do this job subconsciously, guess what? No one's going to hire you for this job. And those are all big, fun, beautiful, messy conversations that we get to have. Um, but in terms of interviewing, what what stood out to you about the interview process?
Mhm. For me, it's nailing the question, "Tell me about yourself," which is like the very first question that any interviewer asks. Of course, they're like, "Tell me about yourself." And back then, I used to go straight into education, saying that I graduated from this, I got my master's, I got my bachelor's, but I learned to not lead with education, but to lead with what you're passionate about, or something that you have done that you are passionate about, and then tie it quickly back to education, and then some internship experience or something. And the very last thing is tying it back to the role that you're interviewing for and how you came to the company and what you want currently.
Yeah, it's such. I'm so glad that you bring that up because it's such a. It's so normal for people, especially right out of school. I mean, all through school, you're trained to just give your education or what you're studying or whatever it is, and so of course you're going to take that into the real world. And guess what? People who are 30 years into their career are still answering "Tell me about yourself" like that. You know, we think you start at the beginning of the story and then you just move through the story when it's actually so compelling. Think about, when you read a thriller novel and they, in the first pair or the first chapter, it's the ending scene of like, well, the cops are at the house and this person is murdered and that's crazy. And then they start from the beginning of the story and you're like, how is this all gonna line up?
Right.
I guess that's how I'm telling you to deliver your "tell me about yourself," just like a thriller murder mystery. But it is a compelling way to share your story by starting anchoring them in where you're headed, where you're going, share your past, and then connect the dots for them. And you nailed it when after we worked on that together. I was so excited to see your "tell me about yourself" come together because obviously you were interviewing for this role that you ended up landing. That's how we land roles, right? But you weren't. What's interesting about this role is that you weren't quite sure about it at first, right? It wasn't the perfect role right off the bat. What what made you still take the interview even though you weren't sure if this would be a good role or not for you?
The biggest thing for me is being grateful that I even landed an interview. And to me, the attitude that I had during the job process is if you have an interview, just take it. Just get the pre-screening, just go through it and be prepared for it. Because it's very rare, I guess, for lack
Yeah.
of better words, in today's world. Um, and then with this particular role that I applied to, I searched online about it to see if the program that the company's legit, but I want to see if the program was what I was looking for. And then I came across like an online forum. It was someone posted like 2 years ago, and I just thought, let's just let's just ask them. They posted about the program, how they went through it, so I just DM'd them because the worst that they could do is just not reply. Like, what is the worst that they can do? So then she replied, and she said that she still works at the company and she loved the program, and she was very transparent and honest about how she felt about it. She only had good things to say about it. I think hearing that she's still in it kind of gave me the confidence to keep pursuing it and being even more grateful. Like the gratefulness just never left since landing the the
Mm.
first interview. And then I also something that I like to do is just talk to a lot of people in my circle, my friends, my classmates, my family about what I'm going through. So I told them all about this role and just gather more of how they felt and their opinions. And then I realized maybe I should pursue this. And then I didn't just learn from the people around me, but I learned during the interview because the interviews are a great time to ask questions to the recruiter and the person who's looking for a job. So I had really great questions lined up. And the more I went through the interview process, the more I was like, I can see myself in this. I'm exactly early career. I want more training. I want to learn a lot. This seems like a great place to do that. I had a really good vibe of the people who were interviewing me. They were all super welcoming. I could see myself like working with them and talking with them if I land the job. So that's how I felt about it. I was a little bit iffy at first, but then asking a lot of questions, which is something that I like to do and I'm good at.
Mhm.
Um, I was like, okay, I can see myself doing this.
Yeah, that's so good. And I really wanted to hone in on that point because there's a lot of pressure for the job to look perfect. I'm using air quotes around perfect from reading the job description. People are very judgmental with job descriptions, and I understand. We don't want to waste our time. We want to be sure about things. We want to protect ourselves from potential pain, all those things. But you just can't judge it all from a job description. Apply anyways. Take the interview if it makes sense and ask questions. You are really good at asking questions. I agree with you. And actually just figuring out, not being so scared of like, well, I need to be on my best behavior all the time because they need to like me so that they hire me. It's like, no, just have a real conversation with them. I thought you did that great, a great job of that. Another thing that really stood out to me that you had said throughout your process, or at the end of your process, looking back, was that redefining success was really helpful for you. So even before you started having these interviews flow in, you found that consider success being the staying consistent that we've already talked about was really helpful for you and helped with that motivation kind of. Why was redefining success that way rather than success only being when you land the job? Why was redefining it so helpful?
I think redefining that success is I think attitude matters a lot in everything that we do.
Mhm.
I approach I approach the job search like, ugh, I have to do this. This isn't fun, which actually it'll never it'll never be fun. That's the truth. But shift your attitude to little wins, trust in the process, which I I know probably a lot of job seekers like they are sick of hearing that, but really do trust the work that you're putting in, which is consistently applying and not relying on motivation. Um, and when you told me that success relies on the consistency in a the groundwork is laid out, that leads to the interviews coming in each week.
If you only rely on interviews coming in, you will be very disappointed. It will be hard to cultivate that motivation that we already said isn't necessary, but it's very helpful. And by redefining success as something that's within your control,
Yeah,
that gives you a lot more agency throughout this whole process that can feel extremely uncontrollable and uh, challenging. This is the way to put it. So that
yes.
redefining success, it gives you a little bit more control back in the process. Would you say that?
Mhm. I like the control part because um, the job search process is so unpredictable. You sh- you need to have the attitude that like you're the only one who's in control, and that comes from consistently applying and believing in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think that's a good time to transition into some advice that you have for people. So if you were to speak to that person who maybe similar to how you felt before, that person who feels behind, what would you say to them?
Hmm, I guess I have more advice for practical job search for especially for early career people.
Yeah, share
Uh,
it.
well, of course, like the first one is just like stop comparing yourself to others, and it sounds easier than doing. But like something that helped me a lot is cutting out social media.
Yeah.
Um, that's the biggest one for me. But another advice I have, like more practical, is as an early career, you don't have to wait to feel ready or have permission to speak like a professional. So, something that I learned that was really valuable from you is try to get rid of phrases like, I know I don't have much experience in this, but, or I'm interested in, or I think. Like, you should just go for it and be confident and say, from my experience working on this, I've done this. The approach that I would take is just be confident, even when you know that you are early career. And even if you have internships that don't connect with the job description, there's always a way. There is always a way to connect it. And then something else that seems sort of counterintuitive in today's job search is actually taking the time to read the job description, because I've heard so many people around me in my life and reading online that they send hundreds of applications a month. But I think it's a lot better to be targeted in your search. Um, so, like for me, the biggest ones are there's two things, which was the title of the job and also the minimum number of years required. And if
Mm-hmm.
it passed those two, then I knew that the job description would be very relevant since change management is really niche. Yeah.
Yeah, that I really like that last piece that you shared. Pick your non-negotiables, right? When you're looking for a house or an apartment, you have your non-negotiables. If it doesn't have a balcony, I am not renting it. Same thing with the job description. Be reasonable, right? But yeah, if it has over 5 years of experience, that's not going to work for me. On to the next. Boom, boom, boom. Quick decision making. But yeah, all the advice you just shared is awesome. And I think we should leave it at that because I know I could talk y'all's ear off all day long about all this stuff, but we will leave it with Katherine's wise words. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your wisdom and your advice and just your experience on this podcast today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. To get an even more meaningful head start into your calling, head to thecalledcareer.com, where my fellow career coach Audrey and I have created a whole suite of free resources and tools to help you get clear and get a job today. For those who are definitely ready to land a job or start a business in the next 6 to 12 months, we're here to help you biblically and practically discern your calling through coaching, reflection, and deep market research. Identify the job that's aligned with it, even if you currently have no idea what you want. Rebrand your resume and LinkedIn to translate your background to appeal to your future boss. P.S. We take this off your plate and do this for you. Also, we'll teach you how to land referrals and get attention from leadership through networking. Again, if that makes you nervous, we have these emails and LinkedIn messages literally written for you so you don't have to sweat. We're also here to give you unlimited interview practice so you're prepared to address every elephant in the room and knock selling yourself out of the park. Then we'll round out with helping you negotiate your salary so you land thousands more. Just so you know, recent clients have gotten $8,000 to $50,000 salary increases, even though they were totally non-traditional candidates. That's because we specialize in helping non-traditional career pivoters land jobs they're ecstatic to serve in. It takes work, but we're here to see you through until the end, when we're celebrating that day that you send me an email in all caps and you say, Kelsey, I got the job. Then you could be on the podcast. But I'll be here until then, keeping you accountable and encouraged by meeting with you literally until you land the job you want, even if that's up to 6 months from now within our program. Apply to join at thecalledcareer.com, and I'll see you next week here at Answer the Call. Bye for now.